Every day, you wake up as your own boss, making your own way. Every day, you continue your journey to change the world, your team, and yourself. Every day, you encourage, congratulate, celebrate, and reach toward your goal of being the best and providing the best. The Build Your Best Business Show is for you. The real stories of building a business from other owners and founders along the journey. Find the support and advice you need to successfully start, grow, manage, and exit your business. What are you going to do today to build your best business?
Welcome to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. This is the show that focuses on the entrepreneurial journey. What does it take to successfully start, manage, grow, and eventually exit a business? It's not an overnight success. It takes a good amount of time. I'm talking today with Matt Baer. He is the founder of Q4Launch, and we're coming to you from Dig South, which is in Charleston, South Carolina. Nice little conference if you're looking for somewhere to go and hang out and learn about entrepreneurship, technology, food, and a little bit of entertainment. So, Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Eric. Thanks for having me.
So tell me about Q4Launch first. So what is your company and what does it do? And then I want to get a little bit into your background and why you may be in Charleston, some of those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. We are a full-service integrated marketing agency that focuses in the hospitality industry, specifically on the lodging side of that. So we say we put heads in beds and bring a full-service approach to that to help our customers drive more revenue, and bring together a suite of web tools, marketing services to really help the lodging industry reach the traveler, attract them to their destination, convert them into a guest, and then nurture them all the way through that life cycle to turn them into a repeat guest, bring them back year after year after year.
Okay, so give me an example of like a location that you might work with, or what would it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have customers from Singapore to Maui. So incredible high-end hotels that are $1,000+ a night, down to some really small bed and breakfasts in some of the best destinations around the U.S. One of my favorite, in the Orchard Inn in Saluda, North Carolina, great little B&B off the beaten path, sitting on the top of a mountain, incredible restaurant, incredible views. And just love that unique experience that I think travelers are craving so much. That's really our customer, and helping them take that story to a digital realm, which is kind of overwhelming for them.
Yeah, and that's not what they do.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and
they
find
provide
that customer.
a great experience, a great, and that's not what they do, is to translate that. So I can see that.
Yeah, and tell that story through the web so that we can attract more travelers.
Yeah, there reminds me, just outside of Atlanta, there's a Highlands, North Carolina, and there are a couple little bed and breakfasts there, and you sort of have to discover them and know that they're there, and then once you go, you have this great experience, so helping them kind of tell that story better. So talk to me about why or how you got into the space, and I'm curious about the name, Q4 Launch.
A lot of people are curious about the name. The name actually started, I had exited a series of successful e-commerce companies in 2008, and the vision I had was to create a family of brands, really leveraging my e-commerce experience, that were going to fall under a brand like Q4. And Q4Launch was going to be our parent company, and we were going to launch this family of brands. And then the economy fell apart.
Right. Yeah.
So as a typical entrepreneur, you wake up and you pick yourself up and say, okay, what are we going to do now? And we started helping entrepreneurs and saw this huge gap in the digital space, in the web design world, in the digital marketing world, that people didn't understand it, which meant there were a lot of people that use smoke and mirrors to their advantage and try to take advantage of entrepreneurs. So I really started coming off of selling my company, was taking time off, had just gotten married, moved to Charleston, was living the dream, sitting on the beach and just helping people, doing free consulting with the Service Corps of retired executives. Sold my first company the day before my college graduation, so I was a SCORE counselor at about 21 years old, which was a little awkward to be that. But it kind of came about organically. It wasn't something I sought out. But really realized I loved to help people, and had a special place in my heart for helping those entrepreneurs that were being taken advantage of by people who had no idea what they were doing. But you could wake up one day and say you're a digital marketing expert.
We see that all the time. There's a ton of that kind of stuff out. The 30 days to riches and it's easy, and it isn't. And you really have to find that right trusted partner that's going to help you get to the next level and figure out how to generate those leads and do that marketing.
Absolutely, and that partnership is so important.
Yeah. So come back a little bit to sort of those first companies that you put together. Is it the classic? I've talked to a lot of people who started companies in their teenage years, because one guy that I worked with in Atlanta, he wanted a really cool stereo system, so he traded his services for the stereo system. So he built a new website for them and did marketing. They got a stereo system, and that was the start of his company, right? So what's your story for the start of your companies?
Absolutely, we actually have some similarities to that story. So I was in the market as a consumer, and really I had a need for a product, and I wasn't happy with the solutions that were out there. We hear that founder story a lot. So figured I could find a better way. I was 17 at the time, and I had $400 in my bank account, but a very supportive mom and dad. And I just had another mentor that helped me design my product, and went around and finally found somebody that would manufacture 6 of those products for me, bought 1 month of advertising and put my own website live, and was out of money, and which you get quickly when you only have $400.
Exactly, that's a very small runway.
But just really hustled with that 1 month of advertising and beating the streets, and sold those 6 products and reinvested and bought 12 and sold those 12 and reinvested and bought 24, and quickly realized my margin wasn't quite where it needed to be at that pace.
Right.
But that was part of our journey too, is that we got in the market and realized this product wasn't scaling like we wanted it to. It took up too much shelf space, there were some other issues, but what it got us in the game, and we found a better product with a much higher margin, and that's really what made our business.
Yeah.
Was the ability to create that product. But had we not been in the game at that moment, we never would have saw that opportunity. Right. So that's one of the things I talk to, as I'm talking to young entrepreneurs, so specifically a lot of college students. I talked to them about get in the game. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But when you get in the game, you're going to see a better pitch, and you're going to be able to swing at that pitch and hit that home run. But if you never stepped up to the plate in the begin with, you never saw that pitch.
When I was talking with a guy who wanted to be in entrepreneurship, and he was working for a company, and he said, well, I have this idea, and I'm not sure if I should pursue it or not. And I said, you should pursue it, because by having a tangible thing you're trying to work with, it makes it more real. If you're just kind of floating around and listening to other people's stories, but you're not trying to accomplish something, you're not learning that same thing that you do when you're in the trenches trying to build it. And I love the idea of scarcity and ignorance, really, right? The more scarcity you have, the smarter you have to be about the money. The more ignorant you are, you don't know you can't succeed. those are the great stories. The people who get all the money, it's harder to see how the business really runs.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to love that hustle every day.
Yeah.
And as we've grown and being in my 4th company now, I was actually just kind of having a fireside chat with our team on Monday, and I was like, guys, we're an industry leader now. We're growing, we're scaling, we're doing all these things. We just moved in this brand new fancy office, but don't forget what got us here.
Right.
Don't lose the stay humble, stay hungry. We've got to keep that as a company, because when you lose that essence of who you are, and you start changing the way you make decisions. And as an entrepreneur, even leading a growing company, that's something I don't care how big we get, I don't ever want to lose that. I don't want to ever lose that mentality.
And you can tell that anywhere you walk in, right? If the company's changed ownership, if a restaurant's not the same person, there's just a difference in the way that that's approached. So you talked about there are a lot of people out there who may be taking advantage of someone who doesn't really understand marketing. So talk to me about how you got through that noise. How were you signing those first customers, getting them to trust you, building your own brand? Then how do people find you and know that you're the organization they should work with?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in my first company, it was a lot of conversations. So this was back pre-Facebook, pre-MySpace, early days.
Was there a day of those things?
It was like the forum life, right? I mean, you'd gather on a forum and...
Bulletin board system.
Absolutely, that's what it was. And we would create conversations. And we would try to help people solve their problems by being there. And that's how we sold our first round of products. And then we started publishing articles and tying those articles back to our products. And now we call that content marketing. Thought leadership, all these things. Back then it was just all we knew to do, because we didn't have any money, so we had to bootstrap it.
Right.
And we've carried that forward now. I mean, we're a marketing agency, in this company, and we're still very much using that thought leadership positioning. So we have a massive webinar series that a lot of people follow in our industry. We've grown that following over the last 3 years, and every single customer we have, and we've gone through the process of tracking this, has been touched by our educational webinar series. So in some capacity, they have passed through that at some point in their buyer's journey before signing on with us. So we're huge believers in the power of thought leadership and the power of giving away free information. And it's really helped us grow our brand and build trust with people in a crowded marketplace where they're getting phone calls every day, the next person who's going to put them on the top of Google, but we earn their trust by sharing our expertise and sharing what we're learning, and that's really become a core value for us of sharing knowledge and giving back to the industry with what we're learning, not just keeping that for ourselves or just keeping that for the benefit of our customer base, but sharing that with the industry, because we believe if we all do a better job as an industry marketing ourselves, we're going to raise the bar for everybody. We're going to raise the customer expectation, we're going to raise the perception of quality, we're going to raise the ability of the rates we're able to command as a hospitality industry. So we really work towards benefiting the industry as a whole, not just our customer base, through that education that we do for the industry.
Well, and what I love that you're talking about is it's from the same kind of playbook that I talk to customers about. I do B2B and B2C. And so in B2B world, I educate your customer. 70% of the decisions made before they pick up the phone. So all you're doing is screwing up the deal or making it happen, right? You know, they've already decided. They just want to get you to confirm for them that you're the right person. And you put stuff out and you don't know if it's doing anything. And one of the things I read recently, 21 times for me to even know who you are, and then 5 to 7 to convert. So that's 28 times that I have to see your name, have you teach me something before I care to think that I might hire you to help me with that service. So you're living proof of that. That's great. So,
absolutely.
So tell me about picking that niche though. So you say that you're 21, you're working as a score entrepreneur, then you decide to start this, and why did you pick hospitality?
So at first we didn't. At first we were just a local web agency. And we were trying to find our place in the world, and we were going Charleston to Charleston, helping any industry that we could get our hands on, anybody that would work with us. And we quickly realized that wasn't as scalable as we wanted it to be. Maybe not as quickly as we should, honestly. I played a lot of golf in the first 2 years. I just sold a company and was, like I said, kind of living my dream at the time. But realized that over a period of time. First, we had the realization we don't want to be a web designer. We want to be a marketing agency. Okay. With web design, it's a part of that. Right. And the ongoing relationship that ties into that, and the value to add value over a period of time. So that's been a much better fit. So I had that realization, and then had a pretty significant event where I left the country for quite a while, left some things to our team, and probably weren't ready for that as a company, and came back to things being a little bit on fire, and realized, man, this isn't quite at what I want out of a company. Yeah. So spent about a year really looking at our customer base that was the most successful, that we were having the most fun with. We were doing a lot of home builder marketing at the time, and we were very successful, but we weren't having any fun. It was just a brutal space to work. So we really wanted to find that place where we were having great success for our customers, and we were having a lot of fun. Yeah. And we actually had a bed and breakfast here in Charleston, South Carolina. And I remember the conversation. Her name was Mary, and we launched in November with her, which is a slower month for the Charleston market. And about a month into our relationship, she said, "Matt, I don't know what you did, but my phone won't stop ringing."
That's awesome.
And I said, honestly, I don't know what I did, but let's figure that out.
Right.
But what we found was that the marketing strategy we were employing just hit a sweet spot in that market. So we said, man, if I had more customers that look like Mary, if I had more Marys in my life, this would be a lot more fun. Yeah. So we, over a period of time, started pushing out our home builder customers and really focusing on developing the Mary customers. Those relationships that were deep and meaningful, that we made a big impact on their business. And we started to build our product around that market. Over about a year, launched it a year later at a conference and had a really slow start. But once we got that thought leadership, once the people knew that they could trust us and that we weren't just the new kid on the block who was going to leave next week, we were the young guys in a very established industry as well. Most of our competitors have been in it for 20 years or more. It's very rare new people enter that market. So we knew we needed to kind of get that proof of concept, and one of my mentors in the space at the time said, Matt, once people figure out they can trust you, hold on, because you're going to struggle to keep up. Yeah. And I said, I hope you're right, Paula. Okay, well, let's hold it there. We're going to go to our first commercial break, and when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that if I am in that space that I need to be looking for. So like, how do I know, what I need to know or care about, and how you may fit with some other marketing techniques or tactics that you hear about, right?
websites, things that fall in this kind of same industry. So you're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. We're talking with Matt Baer. He is the founder of Q4Launch, coming to you from Dick South in Charleston, South Carolina. We'll be right back.
Congratulations, you're your own boss. Now comes the hard part. It's not just about starting a business, it's about successfully managing and growing that business to an eventual exit. And along that entrepreneurial journey, you're going to run into questions and problems that you need quick answers to. Things like, do you need a business plan? How do you read a balance sheet? How do you talk to an investor? When do you bring on a founder? Or what if you're having problems with your partner? These are the types of things that you run into as you're trying to grow that business to the next level, and they may not be the things you want to share in public with other people. They're the problems and issues that arise that, as I have experienced along my own entrepreneurial journey, that I needed to have someone I could trust to reach out to and have a conversation and get a different perspective. And it was often those short conversations that would be the thing that moved me from where I was to where I needed to be. It's for that reason I created the On-Demand CXO product offering. On-Demand CXO is something that you can use to have a conversation with a trusted advisor about what's going on in your business. We do a 1-hour phone call to talk about your business, talk about your objectives, and understand what it's going to take to move you from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. From there, you have ongoing access to a Slack channel to ask me questions in private about what's going on in your business, so that I can provide some advice or connections to my network to individuals who can help you solve against that problem. You will also have access to my Facebook page, which is full of other entrepreneurs who are along the same journey, to have more broad conversations, things that you trust and would talk about in a networking event. But when you need to go and have that conversation with a trusted advisor, you will have the ability to have a conversation with me in a place that's safe, completely anonymous, and unbiased. I want to see you succeed and build your very best business.
And we're back. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Build Your Best Business focuses on the entrepreneurial journey, what it takes to successfully start, manage, grow, and exit a business. We are at Dick South talking with Matt Baer. He is the founder of Q4Launch, and he's done the whole start, grow, manage, exit thing a couple times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so one thing that I'm curious about, well, I wanted to touch on one thing you talked about in the first segment that I thought was really smart. Going from web development to then providing marketing, like you understood the have to versus the want to side, you know? So I have to have a website. I want to do marketing because I want to bring customers in. And thinking about that, you know, I could see people saying, oh, I got to build a website once, and I don't necessarily want to have to maintain that and pay you for it, but I definitely want you to help me market it. So that was a really interesting decision to move up the value chain, you know, like that. I could see you struggling with that, right? Going from a development shop to moving into marketing, those sometimes feel like different things. You know,
very different.
Techno geeks to, you know, strategists, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a big transition for us in who we looked at, who our talent was, but really important part of that process. And I think listening to the customer is honestly what led us there. And I think this is such an important thing as an entrepreneur you've got to think about, in that it's so important to listen to your customer and kind of read between the lines a little bit. And what we realized was that a lot of people would come to us because they wanted to grow their business and they thought a website was how they needed to do that.
Right.
So they would come to us asking for a website because they've already made that decision that that's the right step. But by asking them the right questions and really listening to what they say, which I think a mistake a lot of people make is they don't listen. They have their agenda they're trying to push through. They have their sales script or whatever they're trying to work through, so they're not listening to the customer. But what we found was that they really wanted to grow their business. They didn't care about a website. They just thought that was a tool to do it. So we've developed an educational process and a question asking process to be able to uncover what the real desire was, what the real need was. And what we found was that marketing was really the solution, and they had to have a killer website to make that work, to make that effective. Because you can drive all the traffic you want. If the website's terrible, it doesn't really matter. But when you bring that solution together, you're able to focus on the value, the bottom line, and get down to that, which beautiful websites are great, but at some point there's only so much value you can attach to that. But when you can get down to real metrics, real revenue, and growing a business, that's an area where you can bring that partnership aspect we talked about earlier, and where you feel more like a partner and less like a vendor. And that was a lot of what we wanted, was to be able to develop those long-term partnerships with our customers so that we could have that meaning in our work that was so important to us. So lots of things that tie into that, but something that we still work really hard to teach to our new staff as we're growing is that listen to your customer and understand what they're not saying, but what it means and how to serve that need based on what they're not saying.
Yeah, I wrote in my newsletter a couple weeks ago about going to Home Depot to buy a drill, and I really didn't want a drill. I don't want to own a drill, right? I wanted a hole in a wall, and actually I didn't even want a hole in a wall. I wanted to hang a picture, right? So it's like, my ultimate goal was, would you just hang the picture? Like, I don't really even need the drill, right? So regrettably, I couldn't find anybody at Home Depot who would just come hang the picture for me. Anyway, so as you're talking about the concept of certain things around selecting the right person to work with, so it sounds like one of those things is that if I'm working with someone, they should be asking me smart questions. So they'd be like, what's your objective? So that would be one ding, ding, ding. If they're just going to build a website for me and not ask me what my objective is, that could be a first thing that tells me, hey, could be a problem here.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's a lot of red flags, if you will, or things we talk about as red flags. One of them is price. You know, if they lead with price, chances are they're not listening.
Right.
They're not trying to understand you and what you need if they're leading with price. So we have people get a little bit frustrated sometimes how long it takes us to get to price, but it's because we want to listen and we want to learn you, because we want to present a solution that's the right solution for you, or be able to tell you we're not the right solution for you. Honestly, we turn away about 70% of the people who come to look, who contact us and ask to work with us because we're not the right fit.
Right.
And the last thing we want to do is start somebody down this road or down this journey that's not the right fit for them. So we work really hard to identify that through our process, through asking the right questions early on so that we can do right by them, which a lot of times is not working with us, and helping them find the right person to work with if it's not us. So that's a big part of it. There's other things. I mean, in-house versus out-of-house talent, you know, and we struggled through that in the beginning, that we had to outsource some things because we weren't big enough to carry that kind of payroll. But as we've grown, the value we're able to provide to our customers is so much greater because we have in-house talent.
Yeah.
If we need to have a conversation, we can walk down the hall, we can gather around the ping pong table, we can do whatever we need to do to have a conversation about a customer and moving their agenda forward. Whereas if you have a bunch of out-of-house talent and you're trying to pull that together as an agency, you don't have that ability. You don't have command of their schedule. You don't have shared time and space together. So I think it's an important question to ask of your agency if you're talking to somebody, and just say, hey, what does that look like? And it might feel a little bit awkward, like you don't have permission to ask that question, but absolutely you do. Because if they're going to represent your company, if they're going to represent your voice, if they're going to grow your business, you need to understand who their talent is. Because that's what we're in. We're in a business of people.
Right.
You know, we don't have a widget we sell.
You're selling paper. That's what
Yeah.
Selling paper. And the fact that you're waiting to give price, I would guess, would make your pricing more accurate, because there's nothing more frustrating than getting into one of those projects and it's like, oh, you wanted to do that. Well, that's going to cost X more dollars. And I can imagine the budgets are probably not huge, right, for some of these companies.
Yeah, no, they're really not huge. So we're value engineering a lot of things to try to figure out how to provide what the customer wants on the budget that they actually have. And that's part of that listening process, is really understanding and presenting solutions and saying, okay, you think you want this, but if we do it this way, we can actually make it work within your budget and accomplish all your end goals by just getting there in a different way.
Yeah. And so as someone comes to you, so like one of these hospitality locations comes to you, what are some of the things they need to be prepared with to have a good conversation? Like what do you wish that the customer showed up with?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things I love when they show up is when they've talked to our competitors.
Okay.
Because if you've already talked to my competitor, it shortens our conversation a lot, because you realize how different we are very, very quickly. So that's always exciting. I love to hear that from our sales team when they say, oh, they're talking to so-and-so. I'm like, awesome, we're going to close that deal.
Right.
Because I know how different we are, in a good way. And I don't mean to slam, that's not a slam on anybody else. It's just we're all designed differently, and we've designed our businesses differently. So based on the customer, we know when it's a right fit. But I think that process is really important to be able to get to that right customer and help them understand what they're trying to work through and figure out and make that right match.
Yeah, and so then even from there though, is it like, because I've talked with companies or individuals who feel like I can't bring anybody in because I don't really know my message, I don't know what I want to do. Are there certain kind of must-haves to start, and where do you guys start? Do you start off with defining, tagline and imagery and things? Where does that fall?
Yeah, it really varies based on how established they are. I mean, I had a kickoff call with a customer earlier this week, and they couldn't even answer some really basic questions about demographic. I was like, okay, we got to back this bus up a little bit and define some of these things before we move this forward. But having an understanding of where you want to go is so important, and I think a lot of people don't even have that, of like, what does success look like? Like, can we answer that question? Yeah. If we can't, then it's going to be difficult to create a plan to get there. Yeah. And I think sometimes they don't necessarily want to have that conversation, which is part of how we know they're not the right fit for us. They just want to hire somebody to come in and fix their SEO or fix their website or whatever. Just take care of it and don't bother me with the questions. It's like, well, that's not really what we do. We want to develop this collaboration, this long-standing relationship, and it helps us figure those things out. But I mean, at the very basic level, understand your Google Analytics. I mean, it's amazing. As I travel and speak and I ask crowds, how many of us are on our analytics on a regular basis? And it's like crickets. Right. And that at the basic level is so important. We talk a lot about your analytics or the pulse of your business. And if you're not looking at that, you don't understand where people are coming to your website, how they're getting there, where they're leaving your site, what they're converting on or what they're not converting on, which is usually the case. You can't really develop a successful strategy. So a lot of times that's where we want to start a conversation with a customer is, all right, let's look at your analytics together. And we tell them it's kind of that annual physical. You're going to go to your doctor, you're going to get this checkup. It shouldn't be annual in the case of your analytics, but for most people it is. So let's have that checkup. And we'll share some information with you. We'll give you some valuable insights that whether you hire us or not, you'll know what you need to do. And we'll give you those action steps that you can work with us, you can work with somebody else, but you'll have a plan based on our conversations of what you need to do.
And so how much do the big aggregators play into your strategies? Is that something that is important, or is it something you avoid? Like, where do you fall on that?
Yeah, that's a constant battle, and a question we get a lot. I was actually just out in Phoenix speaking at a conference, and that question was probably the hottest topic of the conference. So we came back and taught a webinar on it, but it's a constant battle. It's a battle for the customer, and in our world, the aggregators in a lot of ways are the OTAs or the online travel agencies, the Expedias and the Booking.coms, and there's an unspoken war for the customer happening in the travel space where the OTAs think they own the customer relationship, and they're doing more and more to separate the hospitality, the hotel, the B&Bs, the inns, the VRs, the vacation rentals. They're separating them from that guest as much as they can to maintain ownership of that relationship. So one of the things we talk about is, who do you want to own your customer relationship? And when you put it in that terms, that's what's at stake, is the ownership of the customer. And as a independent hospitality person, which we've kind of coined the term hospitalitarians, as hospitalitarians, do we believe we should own our customers? And we believe we should. And that relationship that the customer has with the brand is very, very important. And you lose that when you say, I'm going to outsource my marketing and my customer acquisition strategy to an OTA. Yeah. It may have a role in your strategy, but it shouldn't be your primary source of business.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely see that. Yeah, definitely see. I'm curious how it played in, but would think you would definitely want to be owning your own destiny on that side.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Warren Buffett talks about that competitive moat. If your whole strategy is put my property on the OTA, that's not a competitive moat. Anybody can do that. Right. So you have no competitive value, and in the sense of building a business with value, if all your customers are coming from an OTA channel and you're their puppet essentially, you really have no value because there's nothing special about your company. You haven't built anything. Anybody can be your competitor next week by just putting their inventory on the OTAs.
Okay. Well, very curious. So tell me future. So what do you see in the hospitality? What's next? Like, what are the things that we should be worried about in that industry, or ways we're going to market, that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that's what's next, and a lot that we're super excited about as a company as we're changing some of the ways we look at things and changing our vision a little bit that we've talked to our customers about and we're pumped up about. But I think a lot of that is this continued battle for the customer. I think that battle is going to heat up, and we have to, as brands, we have to realize what role we're going to play. Are we going to wave that white flag and say, okay, I give up building my own brand as an independent, and I'm going to let the regime, if you will, the brand.coms, the flagged hotels, and the OTAs control that world. And one of the things I love about what Airbnb has done in our industry is they have really put a lot of marketing dollars into this idea of unique experiences.
Yeah.
And that's what our customers have been providing for years. So I see it as a huge opportunity to grow the independent sector of lodging, whereas a lot of people see it as competition.
Yeah.
I see it as good competition. It is competition, but we believe it's going to grow that sector in a big way. So I think that's a tremendous opportunity, but an opportunity for people to get serious about building their brand and owning their customer relationship. One of the other big opportunities we see that we don't think is being done well industry-wide is something that's been referred to as the anticipation phase. We work closely with HomeAway, which is a major travel player. They've been just bought by Expedia about a year ago. But they had some research that said that people's favorite part of their vacation is not the actual vacation. It's the time between booking and experiencing their vacation.
Yeah.
That's the best part of vacation. So when you survey customers and you realize those types of things, the booking process can be painful at times, and we work hard to make that easier and make that information more palatable. And then the vacation process can be painful because you show up and it's raining and your kids are screaming, or your wife is not in the mood you hoped she was going to be in, or whatever. So it's not what you had the expectation it was going to be in. But if we can market well to consumers in that anticipation phase, where everything's perfect, right? Because it hasn't happened yet. I'm not in the car driving. I haven't dealt with United taking me off a flight.
Yeah, right.
Everything's perfect. So we're looking a lot at that anticipation phase as a company, and we believe there's a tremendous opportunity that lies there. One, to provide a better guest experience, and that's the most important of everything we do, is providing that great guest experience, and that leads to average life cycle or customer values over their life cycle being much higher. So that's a really important part of it. But also looking at that life cycle and how do we drive monetization of a guest on property, which is something that hotels have talked about for years, but they wait till they check in to start that process.
Yeah, so it's selling the spa services and things when you show up, and I'm like, I didn't even bring the stuff to go to the spa. Didn't even know you had one, right?
Absolutely.
So like, how do I learn these things so that I'm ready before I get there, right? And maybe didn't anticipate spending the money. So how do I decide that's going to be part of my experience?
Absolutely, and with changing technologies, there's so many cool ways of doing that. I mean, if a hotel is connected to their guest well and they know it's going to be a rainy day, why aren't they pushing content that says, here's the perfect rainy day activity on our property, so that they can overcome some of those negative experiences that guests might have otherwise with, oh man, it's raining and my vacation's ruined. Oh, well, it's not really. You just need, here's our rainy day itinerary.
Right.
And how do we push that out and get that content into guests' hands so that they can have a better guest experience?
Very cool. Well, love what you're doing, love the category. So I've gotten to talk today with restaurants and now hotels, which is one of my favorite.
Welcome to Charleston.
Little boutique hotels. So I'm talking with Matt Baer. He's with Q4Launch, the founder of Q4Launch, coming to you from Charleston, Dick South. And until next time, what are you going to do to build your best business?